these are some physiological benefits that you can accrue. But I think we need to go beyond that, because one of the challenges with yoga that we are facing is that people are marketing it very smartly, marketing it as a technique whereby it will give you some benefits. And of course, 20 million people is the word that is bandied about. 20 million people practice yoga, so we cannot expect all of them to get to, as Swamiji said, more comprehensive levels, higher levels. But I think as Center for Indic Studies, we have to always show that this is just maybe a byproduct at the most, in terms of if you do these practices, you get these beneficial results, but this is still a very small part of it. But to your other question of how philosophy and science can be married, I think the main issue which Jerry alluded to is bias. I mean, as long as you can keep your observations unbiased, you are scientific. And as long as you follow, as Jerry said, a scientific methodology, it is science to me. And therefore, if we can convince people that this practice or this technique is a way to understand yourself, and as long as you can be that observer of the self, I think that it's perfectly in sync with all scientific principles. And that is, I believe, our biggest challenge as to how we can move people from this general paradigm that science means that there is something outside there happening, and you just observe and record some data and make some theories or validate some hypotheses. That need not be the case. Those same principles, as long as you can make yourself be the observer of your body changes or mental changes, then it's perfectly scientific.
Thank you. This really raises, just to bring another aspect, we all of us are talking about peace in the world. It could be a turning point, and it just happened to be a new Prime Minister in India who addressed for the first time United Nations General Assembly on 27th of September last year, where he proposed this idea of International Yoga Day. It seems International Yoga Day or World Yoga Day or something was there last 10-15 years. I think people are talking about it, but no leader world leader really came to propose this, and he proposed very effectively and by very clearly saying spirituality in his statements. It has world peace, it has so many other benefits for the society to get people together and unite them, all that, but also said it helps people to clarify their spirituality and advance themselves. One observation that I made is there were 175 countries co-sponsoring this resolution to make it International Yoga. I think that's a message. I mean, all of you are saying very important. This yoga is very important. Scientific approach is very important. While there may be some people who do not necessarily accept it and they feel conflict, but 175 countries out of 193. And then this resolution accepted consensus, means unanimous. There was no opposition whatsoever. I think that speaks to the fact that it has been absorbed subconsciously, if not overtly, at least internally people have accepted, and this is an opportunity. And the question is, this is of course a long process that started with Thoreau and Emerson learning about Indian philosophy, and then Swami Vivekananda coming in 1893 as a person to go around. It all happened to be in Massachusetts, which is kind of gives us a little bit of pride. Sorry about Rhode Island, which is but the point is how this process has moved from those days 1820s to today, where now the whole world is willing to basically accept this yoga philosophy. What you think has has happened in the society that leads to this, Swamiji?
Oh, you want to say something?
Go ahead, Carol.
Then I'll speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
I wanted to say something about religion and science, in that, and this has changed in recent years with the advancement of science, because religious people felt that they believed in something which was beyond the tangible world. A God in the spiritual life was beyond anything that could be proven by science. But now, with the advancement in physics, we know that even matter and the world is not what it seems. There's something beyond. Even a chair or a desk, it looks solid, but physics tells us that it's just all energy. And so I feel that with more and more understanding of physics, of the finer levels of creation, there's going to be more progress in the union of religion and science, and that more understanding of those subtler realms. And I think that was a major difference from when Thoreau and Emerson were first talking about this and exploring this knowledge. So it was very separate.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, that's a very good point. Swamiji wanted to add something.
Well, what you were telling about what happened since Swami Vivekananda preached this message of comprehensive and scientifically verifiable, tangible yoga system, is that firstly, Swami Vivekananda was a tremendous force, a very sustainable force that changed the thought world, the thought currents of the world. It is in a subtle way, not that everybody is conscious that Swami Vivekananda did it, but Swami Vivekananda started that current, and then that has very subtly influenced the thinking of people, and thus we see that so many people get involved in understanding of other religions. I see this interfaith activity has become now common with all different churches of whatever denominations they may be. They need to have an interfaith activity or connection with an interfaith activity. And thus what happens is, when you get to know about others, the conflicts naturally get subdued because of the interaction. If I refuse to talk to you, then I just sit with my convictions, howsoever stupid they may be. But when I talk to you and try to see that how what you are saying is really right, illuminating, that and beneficial to me, my understanding changes, my feelings about you change, and thus it brings a peaceful connection between us. So this idea, when it spread, yoga becomes a big important tool. I see that, as she was saying that she is practicing Catholic, she still is a Roman Catholic and has no conflict with yoga or meditation. And I know thousands and thousands of such people. Our Vedanta societies, actually, they all over United States, they are not really Hindus per se. They practice religion in their own way, but imbibe this idea of yoga at whatever level it suits them. Like at physical level, they perform yogic exercises. I know one Roman Catholic lady, she first came to Vedanta Society through connection with Hatha Yoga. That she was learning Hatha Yoga at some YMCA, and then there she heard the word Vedanta and then came there. That I see the influence of yoga spreading in this manner. You know, when I see you are benefited by something, I also like to practice it. You took this pill and that gave you relief, hey, let me also take it. So that is how it spreads, and that actually confirms its scientific nature, because the most important this characteristic of something being science is, can I experimentally verify it? Doesn't depend on somebody is theorizing it. Can I practically experience it? And yoga is science in that sense. Also, a book by Swami Vivekananda that now has lost popularity, but in the initial days of this yoga movement, it was at its height of popularity, Raja Yoga. And there, actually the first introductory chapter is showing how this yoga is a science that you can take up. He gives that, you know, every science will have its own instruments. Like a biologist will have a microscope, an astronomer will have a telescope. And if I want to study, say, astronomy, but still I want to stick to my microscope, I will not be able to study that science, you see.
You have to use the right tools.
Right tools. So this science of yoga you can explore if you use the right tools. If you want to stick to your tools of, say, physics or biology or geology, then of course you will not be able to study it, but that does not give you right to brand it as unscientific. I fully endorse what Jerry and Dr. Rathi, they were saying about this, that it is, that it is science, but then sometimes scientists become more dogmatic than the people of so-called, you know, religious people. That they have dogmas called science. That's it. And in fact, that has, if we read the history of science, we will see the progress of science has been a lot impeded by the scientific dogmas. People initially refused to accept Einstein, even though there were evidences, even though it was quite valid, still no, I won't accept it. So this happens in science too, you know, I mean, science is also by human beings, so also religion also, so we bring our own defects in these disciplines too.
So everything is defective. Just for audience, Vedanta Society is an organization as part of Ramakrishna Mission that was established by Swami Vivekananda when he came here in 1893. So Swamiji is part of that organization that is spreading this message and this knowledge. Dr. Rathi, you said couple times about, you know, the benefits, scientific benefits, medical benefits that we can get from yoga. But where does the yoga come from? I mean, why somebody does whatever they do? How to approach that scientifically? But where is why did someone think of doing this? You are a neuroscientist, so
more on the imaging side, but yes.
Yeah, it's an imaging side. So how? I mean, obviously everything is created through mind, at least whatever we see in this physical world. And mind is, as a scientist, we think its mind is really a creation of the brain. And so, is there anything in the imaging technology that you think that can be approached to understand more basic fundamentals of yoga?
Yes, I think that's the opportunity we have now with the advancement of great scientific technology. At this point, we can look at how what you're thinking in terms of when you're lying down in an MRI scanner, for example. We can ask you to do certain tasks just by thinking about it. The parts of the brain are activated, and that allows it at an unprecedented detail what is going on. Although we cannot understand completely right now what exactly that person is thinking, but at least we can figure out what parts of the brain are active or inactive. And for example, it is known that people who do our traditional practice of meditation have what is called their default mode network is a bit subdued, which means that if you look at the functional MRI and you take any sort of random people, they're lying down in the scanner, and you just say close your eyes and think about nothing, you tend to think about the past or the future. That's your habit. But if you are a practitioner of meditation or yoga, you tend to be in your present, and that's the reason the default mode network, which are certain parts of the brain, they get deactivated, and as a result you're more likely to accept what is going on, and you're aware of yourself. And I think going forward, computer scientists, neuroscientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, everybody put together, I think we'll have a very new and very informed perspective from the scientific point of view about what is going on in the brain when we practice yoga or when we do meditation.
Thank you. There are so many types of you.
If you
Yeah.
permit
Yes,
just
please.
one
Yes.
small comment,
Yes,
that what
absolutely.
you said, that the scientists feel that mind is a product of brain.
Yeah.
Actually, the yoga puts it in the opposite way.
Okay.
That it is like putting cart before the horse. The mind functions through brain, but that doesn't mean that brain creates mind. It is like saying that these bulbs create electricity.
Very good point.
Yeah, so it is not like
So
that.
so there is a conflict between science and yoga.
There is
After all.
there is no conflict, but some scientists think like that, as you said.
I
It
think
is-
most of the scientific community thinks
Yeah,
like what I said,
yeah.
but that they need to understand this
Go a little
the other
deeper.
way around,
Yeah.
whereby which I mean example is very good. It's the same thing as the TV does not produce a program.
Yeah.
Program produces the TV's
Yeah.
transmission through the TV.
Yeah, hardware doesn't produce software. you know.
Yeah. That's fully
This-
understandable.
Exactly. The more people are understanding this computer science and all, they are trying to see that it is not that the brain that is producing mind. In our yoga systems, the mind works through different hardwares, body and brain. Brain is part of body. It is hardware, and mind is software. Therefore, it can be loaded just as a software can be loaded on any type of hardware. The mind, like your thoughts are being taken in by me in a way that that information is being loaded on my brain. So it is like that, you see.
See, this is a topic of really maybe a separate discussion
Separate
because this is
discussion,
very
yeah.
important. But there is one thing that is related to this. There are several types of yoga, and that's you mentioned Raj Yoga, where there are Karma Yoga, there are Hatha Yoga. It's several names that we heard. Then there are so many Bikram Yoga and Balram Singh Yoga, Swamiji Yoga. One of my students said Vachulanam Yoga. So, where does all this come and fit? And I'll come to Karen to see what she has in opinion about
Well,
it.
yoga is a comprehensive system. As I mentioned in the beginning, that it is connecting yourself to your goal. And connecting means all your faculties need to be connected there. Like if you want to drive a car to some place, then all four wheels have to be driven, Only one wheel will go and others will stay back. That won't happen,
Yeah.
So similarly, all our faculties need to be given the direction of that ideal. And therefore, so many different names of yoga. like when you tune your activity in such a way, your actions in such a way that it helps you to attain the goal, then that becomes karma yoga. Karma means action. Your actions turn towards it. When your emotions are turned towards the goal, then it becomes the yoga of devotion or bhakti. And when your intellection is turned towards that, it becomes yoga of knowledge, jnana yoga. And when our faculty of concentration, meditation, that is turned towards that, the faculty of control towards the goal, then it becomes Raja Yoga. And if we see Bhagavad Gita, each chapter, each of the 18 chapter is titled as yoga, like yoga through despondency, that is the first chapter.
Vishad yoga.
Yeah, Vishad. We all get Vishad, means we become despondent. But how can we turn this despondency towards our goal? That is called an Vishad yoga, despondency yoga, and so forth. So many yogas, therefore, are possible, and they are not to be considered in conflict with each other. Just as four wheels of the car are not in conflict with each other, they have to run in harmony basically. So, it is like that, that there are yoga is a combination, a single term for all these things, like a body is a term that comprises all these parts, like that. Yeah.
If I may suggest, Swamiji,
Yeah.
I like your analogy about the software and the hardware.
Yeah.
I would add a third, which I do with my psychology students in my
Yeah.
psychology courses. Wetware.
Wetware.
There's software, there's hardware, but there's wetware, because the third one, wetware, the brain has a structure, of course, the hardware. There is a program someplace, the software, but it's managed mainly by an electrochemical network of processes within the
Yeah.
hardware.
Yeah.
So you might want to add that.
Yeah,
to your
sure. That is certainly an important thing. Yeah, very good.
Very good
Yeah.
point, Jerry.
Yeah.
Karen, Swamiji said about this Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Gyan Yoga, all this, which is philosophically discussed. But now I see, if I do internet and say yoga, there will be so many yoga. There is a Hatha Yoga, and there is a Heart Yoga, which means really hot temperature. There is a Bikram Yoga, and there is so many other names that appears. What do they all mean to you? I mean, do you practice or teach a particular yoga, or?
Well, yoga, as we know, is meaning union, so union of body and spirit. So unity consciousness is at the top of the mountain. So if we all agree that the top of the mountain is where yoga is, but there are many paths up the mountain. And you can't say that one yoga is right for everyone. So this is where we all have free will and we're all wired differently. And whatever yoga is most supportive to you individually is the one that you should do. And I teach all different types, and then I allow everyone to choose which one fits them, as long as you get to the top of the mountain.
All right, very good. The last point I wanted to discuss in this is about what will happen in future and whether money will play any role in it. The yoga industry is a big business. In the United States, it's $27 billion industry right now. So of course, maybe money is considered vice from yoga philosophy, but nevertheless it moves it. So Professor Sengupta, we had some survey, if I remember correctly, about the yoga practitioners in the area, students at one time through the Center for Marketing Research, about yoga as an industry, and where you think this aspect of the society where money is a driving force can help or hurt yoga.
So I think right now it is both helping and hurting yoga, in the sense that, as you said, it's a booming business, and as part of that survey that you mentioned, we got many responses to the effect, I wish there were more yoga studios nearby, or I wish the yoga studio that I go to is open more, open longer hours and things like that. So in that way it is helping, and the way it is hurting is that it is amplifying the perception that yoga means just a few poses. I think that in the States the public is very smart, and we are experiencing a time when people are questioning, is this what I went into just for a few asanas? And now with the diffusion of knowledge through the internet and all, people are seeing that just limiting itself to the asanas is not the way. So we do get a lot of queries as to, well, I am doing this, how can I now kind of raise my level to beyond these postures and things like that. So in that way, we will get, I'm sure, in the years to come, more people who would like to go deeper into it. So this is to us just, I think, the front door, and as they graduate from this experience, which no doubt is very beneficial, we have all been discussing the health effects, but the hunger, I think, will propel them to seek deeper, more enriching experience, which the other part of it is not many are qualified to give that kind of education. So that is a danger that we talked of gurus. Guru in the Indic tradition has a very exalted position, understandably so, because the qualifications of a guru are very strict. So today you may have gurus who teach asanas, and while some of them are good, some of them not so good, you may have some kind of health disbenefits. But if you now take it to the next level, if a guru who's not qualified is giving instructions beyond asanas, then the danger is much more. But I think people will sort out through it.
And the issue is, when anything becomes business, just to give my opinion, I think yoga is totally against religion. If somebody is able to practice your religion, you are a great person, because religion, the way I look at it, is a business. To me, the way the religion is run in the world, it doesn't matter which religion, it's mostly involves money. If you take money away from religion, then the business of religion probably will be closed. So yoga empowers individuals, whereby they don't need to be dependent on somebody other than maybe some very credible, authentic guru who cares about the society, which is where I was bringing this idea of $27 billion, only when 20 million people are practicing. And if we got to half of the population of the United States or half of the population of the world, it will become an industry, will attract a lot of people, capitalists, who would like to have their corporations get involved in this. And what will it do to yoga, where it will become more fashion? I think some people still think it's a fashion. So I think that is my concern. One needs to be aware of and maybe take some precautions as we celebrate this International Yoga Day on 21st of June. It is important that people are aware of it, because knowledge is the key. Everybody should know, not get into the trap of the fashion and the fad that we are getting to the yoga. So my last set of questions, for those of you who want to comment, it doesn't have to be, is what is the significance of this 21st of June? Why 21st of June? And then what you think the future holds in terms of both in view of the fact that the money could become an issue in this as it becomes more popular. Anybody wants to?
I'd like to start by pointing out that I believe that's the summer solstice.
Yes.
Which is symbolic of a number of things.
21st of June is summer, the summer solstice. Yes.
That's yes.
Yes.
And so there is a long tradition of celebrating the summer solstice for a variety of reasons, physical, external, and internal as well. I like that date for celebrating the International Yoga Day because yoga to me is both internal and external. It is something that we do for our outside world, our bodies, our relationships with other people, which we haven't mentioned yet. But there is some good research that shows that practicing yoga, practicing meditation, has an impact on the relationships a person has within their workplace and within their families. And so there's that aspect of the external social world, and there's the internal aspect of yoga, which we have talked about. And I like that. I like the solstice as a symbol of international yoga.
Thank you.
Well, one comment on what Jerry said is that, you know, if we take it from that point of view, then it is true only for the northern hemisphere. So instead of calling it the International Yoga Day, we should call it
Northern Hemisphere Yoga
Northern Hemisphere Yoga Day. So therefore, probably it might have some other significance. Otherwise, that interpretation will not go well with the southern hemisphere. In Australia, they won't like this interpretation, I am sure.
It certainly it reflects a transition. Dr. Ratti, you had to say something?
No, I think it's you know, I primarily think that's probably why it was chosen. Maybe it's the longest day of the year.